Hey everyone, Cole here. I'm sorry, I'm in a room where there is like some traffic going by. Could you hear that? I don't know. I'm sorry if it's bothersome. I'm not in my office today like I was last time. I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that you enjoyed our first week focused on Salem, which I think is one of the more interesting parts in American history in general. Um, we're shifting gears today. Um, oh gosh, I don't like 150 years later or something, um, to the mid 19th century. It's sort of like these pivotal moments of the Civil War, the American Civil War. Um, and I won't say too much about it because I've written sort of like a cursory overview of the things I want you to focus on in the assignment itself. But basically, we're going to be focused on this period in 1865 when Lincoln was assassinated and his plans for Reconstruction were threatened by, uh, then President Andrew Johnson, who took over after his assassination, who's, by the way, one of the, if not the worst president in American history. He tried to very actively, overtly destroy everything that Lincoln had planned. This was a period in time when the vice president wasn't someone who ran on the ticket with the president. Um, Andrew Johnson was the winning member of the opposite party, and so was ticketed with Abraham Lincoln because of that. So he like very philosophically um, and politically minded differently than Abraham Lincoln, and really tried to thwart the efforts of Lincoln in general. And one person stood in his way. This was Secretary of War, which is a position we no longer have. Edwin Stanton, who gave the rest of his life, basically, to thwart the efforts of Andrew Johnson. So read a little bit about that, as well as some notions of sort of whether or not you think the American Civil War, or we think the American Civil War, ever really ended. Are we still divided along the socio-political lines that existed in the day? It had such a contentious end, and not one that ever really had a stamp put on it. I think that's a misconception we have. Um, and so our people still sort of divided along the same lines. Maybe it looks a little bit different, but are we rooted similarly? Are we the same families, the same descendants of these people? And so do the problems still persist in contemporary American society? You're also going to read one article about how the Civil War was really driven by race slavery, and that there are lots of misconceptions about how that's not true. Um, that it was about more than that. Secession and land ownership, things like that. Um, Sort of a smokescreen, I think, and you'll see that it really was racially driven. I think, especially after you read that article. I think most of us understand that was a component of it, but it was this article. I think will hopefully make you believe that it was sort of like the driver of it. Um, Okay, so the same structuring as last week. By Wednesday, I'd like you to create your discussion post in response to the articles. And then between Wednesday and Friday, I want you to do two things. Respond a couple of times to your peers, as you did before. And then for Friday, you're not watching a movie this week like you did with The Crucible. Instead, I'm going to have you listen to three fairly brief episodes of a podcast. So find some time to carve that out, whether it's, you could be like doing the dishes or driving, or sit down and listen to it more concentratedly. Anything is totally fine. It's this podcast called 1865, which is it's like acting. It's not someone sitting there and talking history to you. It's sort of like a play through a podcast that focuses really heavily on Edwin Stanton and what happened in the days and then the months after Lincoln's assassination and President Johnson's rise to power. It's really good. It's really good. I hope you think so. It helps shift my perspective a lot on the American Civil War, and what I believe is still happening because of the American Civil War today. Um, so give it a listen. Again, the first three episodes, I cited the names of them specifically in the assignment because it can get a little confusing. There's a lot of like extras and things littered throughout the podcast episodes. Like you'll see between each one, there's like an inside the episode. You don't need to listen to that if you don't want to. Just the first 3, and then if you want to, they're only like 25 minutes each. So maybe you continue listening to it. I think there's like 12 episodes total. Just really eye-opening stuff about the end of Edwin Stanton's life and what he did. Sorry, my dog is running around over here. What he did to help shape history. And how, like, none of us know who he is. None of us know who Edwin Stanton. I didn't really. A little bit maybe, but not much of anything before I listened to that podcast. And now I think this guy should be on like every piece of currency we have. I don't know. Anyway, you can make your own opinions about that. So for this week, read the few things about the American Civil War. There are 3 articles with fairly different content. Respond to that by Wednesday, and then between Wednesday and Friday, respond to 2 of your peers' discussion posts, and respond to the podcast, please, and thank you. After this week, with Salem and with the American Civil War, we're talking about sort of like the beginnings of what ultimately led to protests that I think are constantly happening in this country. For next week, we're going to start looking at some actual specific organized protests in this country. So we are going to shift from, it's all history, it's all historical context, but from sort of like the groundwork of political dissent and socio-political dissent, and then into people actually, actionably protesting a lot of these things for next week. But, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I just wanted to give you that heads up. So thanks, everyone. I've loved reading your work so far. I think it's so interesting and so engaging, and I appreciate you jumping in really, really headfirst into the water of this course. Y'all are amazing, and I've loved your perspectives, and I can't wait to see what you think about some of this stuff, which is pretty different from last week. Thanks. Let me know if you have any questions. The articles are like, one of them is NYT and one of them is The Atlantic, both of which are paid periodicals, and can be behind a paywall if you've already accessed the number of free articles for that month or whatever. If that's a problem, just email me and let me know, and I can find some kind of workaround. But if you haven't exhausted the free articles for either website for the month, it shouldn't be a problem. And then the podcast is free. It's just on like Spotify and Apple Podcast, wherever you get podcasts, it should be there. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and let me know if you need anything. I look forward to reading your work. Take care. Cole out.